You have PCOS and maybe you have heard that losing weight on a low-carb diet can help. Or you're debating whether to do low-carb versus keto. Or you know what to do, but just don't know where to start. We got you.
By the end of this video, you'll get crystal clear on how to ease into a more low-carb diet and understand the difference between low-carb, keto, net carbs, all of that, so you can make your own strategic, informed choices on how you want to approach food and lose fat naturally.
And I really hope you stick around until the end because we are going to give you 3 methods for tailoring your carb intake without compromising your sanity. One of our clients managed to lose over 27 pounds in 5 months by sticking to these methods. She even got to a point where she could reliably guess how many calories and carbs were in her food just by eyeballing without tracking.
And we have a bonus cheat sheet that's going to really help you, so stay until the end for how to get that.
Hi, Richa and Lucy here from CoachViva.com for the best advice on how to be a badass body boss for life. Subscribe to our channel and hit the bell to be notified when we post a video every week. Before we begin, I want to quickly announce that a few spots are open now for our free one-to-one consult with us for our Badass Body Boss program. So make sure you stay until the end of this video for the announcement on that. Now let's get started. Many women with PCOS also have insulin resistance, since the effects of one can often worsen the symptoms of the other in a feedback loop. And PCOS and insulin resistance affects weight gain in a specific way that is uniquely affecting you and how you should approach your food choices in a way that other people don't have to. What you need to know is that it's strongly connected to the carbs in your food. When you eat a carb-heavy meal like pasta, bread, and cake, the food gets broken down into sugars or glucose. So here's a pizza, and then here's a cell, and then it gets broken into these sugars that you're seeing over here, the black spots. So when this happens, then your pancreas release insulin. So you can see the eyes, these are the insulin. In order to tell your body, it needs to move these sugars from your bloodstream into your cells to be used for energy. But when you develop insulin resistance, the cells reject some of this glucose. So you can see the insulin is just being rejected by the cell now. And with a lot of excess glucose floating around in the bloodstream, unused by the cells, eventually your body must do something about them. And that includes storing them as fat. So your body frantically produces more insulin to force it into your cells, which make insulin resistance worse over time. Think of it like alcohol. The more you drink, the more you have to drink to get drunk. But if you cut back on alcohol for long enough, your alcohol tolerance will go back to normal. So your goal is to cut back on foods that spike insulin. Now recall that insulin levels are spiked by primarily high starch and high sugar foods like bread, rice, and cake. Carb and sugar. Fruits and starchy vegetables like beans and potatoes will also raise insulin, but to a lesser degree since these foods are high in fiber. So here we have fruit and starchy vegetables. Finally, protein can also raise insulin, but not to the degree that carbs can. So over here we have protein. Also, protein is vital for building and maintaining muscle mass while losing fat and is vital for carrying out hormonal functions, which women with PCOS especially need. So it's not recommended that you cut down on protein. This is why experts focused on helping those with PCOS focus on lowering carbs instead. Now, before we continue, some common questions we get asked a lot are, number 1, what's the difference between low carb versus keto? Keto is basically an extreme low-carb diet that drops carbs so low your body relies on nothing but fat for fuel. It can be effective, but is very difficult to sustain for most people. The second question we get asked a lot is, can I just pay attention to net carbs? Net carbs is the amount of carbs that is the total carbohydrates you see in the nutrition label minus the amount of fiber, which is a type of indigestible carb. And the answer is yes. You can just pay attention to net carbs. The reason is that the carbs and fiber does not get digested and absorbed by our bodies anyway, so it doesn't raise insulin nor contribute to fat storage. But you don't have to if it's too cumbersome to do a food math every time you take a bite. As a matter of fact, we'll show you different strategies that don't require food math if that's a concern for you. I understand a lot of us come from overly complex dieting backgrounds and don't want to go there again. In fact, comment below and tell me what's the best or worst experience you've had with low carb dieting, keto, and or other diets you've tried in the past.
The good news is that you can lose fat by integrating lower carb foods into your diet if you are serious about it and have the patience to see it through. You will see fat loss if you stick to the methods I'm going to share, but your rate may be different than your friends. Everyone's body is different, and this is especially true for women with PCOS. The more carbs you can reduce without a huge surge of insulin, your body will not be told to store as much fat as before, and it will start to digest its existing fat stores more than before. The good news is that by reducing the amount of insulin our bodies release, we can actually slowly resensitize our bodies to insulin again. But you have to put in the hard work up front first. Here are 3 ways to do it. Method 1, track your carb intake. And that is by grams. This is the most accurate method, and you can do it in an app like MyFitnessPal or old school food journaling and on paper. If you track in a journal, you can write down the portions of the foods that you're eating and look up the carb amount for it later. This may actually be great for people who have a tendency to cheat by logging smaller portions than what they actually ate in order to feel good about their numbers. So if you tally up all the foods at the end of the day, or even better, do it the following day, you're less likely to be as emotional about your foods compared to in the moment logging. You can track your typical carb intake for 3 days, including at least 1 weekend day, just to be comprehensive, to get a baseline of how much you're currently eating. Then try cutting 10 to 20% of that. Every week, evaluate whether or not you're still losing weight, inches from your waist, feeling better, whatever is your metric. Although we recommend at least a weight plus waist measurement so you can get a well-rounded picture of your progress, since weight loss by itself is very non-linear. If you're making progress, great. Don't change anything. Otherwise, decrease by 10 to 20% more carbs until you are making progress. Or rather than tailoring it slowly, you can go ahead and start from an ideal baseline of 20 to 30% of your daily calorie intake coming from carbs. That would be considered a low carb diet. And here's how to figure that out. Calculate your currently estimated daily calorie expenditure using a calculator that I will link in the description below. It will tell you how many calories you should be expending per day to maintain your current weight. That's your starting point. Eat about 0.3 times your maintenance calories, which you will get if you use that calculator, divided by 4. That is the number of grams of carbs that you want to eat at or below. You may want to dial this up or down later depending on whether or not you're making progress week over week. If you want to lose weight, remember that overall calories still needs to be less than your maintenance. So we also recommend starting with eating 200 calories less than what your maintenance calories are and see how you progress. We recommend this method for people who are either 1, just starting out and need to learn the ropes about how much carb is actually in their foods. So if you're completely new to reading nutrition labels, check out this video we made on how to do just that. Or 2, it's for people who prefer using numbers as a more accurate guardrail, and they're also not compulsive about making sure everything is perfect either. But if you already have a sense of what foods are considered low and high carb, or you know that you're the kind of person who does get super obsessive and anxious over food tracking, then you might want to opt for method 2, which is track your food by food groups. Most foods in the same food groups have around the same calories and carbs per serving. For instance, most lean meats are around the same calories and carbs, around 200 calories and 0 grams of carbs for a palm-sized portion, whether that's chicken, lean beef, fish, etc. The same goes for grains, which are about 200 calories and 45 grams of carbs for a 1-cup portion cooked. So whether that's rice or pasta, it's all around that same point. So all you really need to do here is to figure out about how many carbs only a handful of food groups contain, and then aim to have less of the high carb food groups and more of the low carb food groups. What a high carb means is subjective, but most can agree that it covers foods that have more than 30 to 40% carb content. So in practice, that means about 15 to 20 grams of carb per typical serving of the food. You can begin again with the tapering method by tracking how many high carb foods and low carb foods you're eating right now. Do it for 3 days. Then cut 1 to 2 cupped handfuls of high carb foods per day for a week and see whether you make progress or not. If not, cut another 1 to 2 cupped handfuls until you see progress. Or rather than tailoring it down slowly, you can try going ahead and start straight from an ideal baseline of 3 cupped handfuls per day. Now this method still requires some food tracking, but with a lot less math. And you really only need to track your high carb foods rather than everything you eat. There's some upfront overhead to figuring out what food groups are considered high carb, but if you stick around to the end of this video, I'll show you how you can get a cheat sheet that has 13 of the most common types of food groups along with how many carbs they contain. But if you really just don't want to keep tabs on any food at all, then I recommend method 3, which is intermittent carb fasting. Now, this method is pretty simple. Basically, you eat no high carb foods for a certain period of time, then you do let yourself eat high carb foods for the rest of the time. You can think of this as intermittent fasting, but with carbs. You can do within day eating windows. So that would be something like maybe only eat carbs during 4 hours of the day, like say from 4 to 8 p.m. Or you can do an every other day style, where you might eat carbs on one day, but then on the next day you don't eat any high carb foods. Or really, whatever works for you, try both and try mixing and matching. The method is great for people who don't want to keep tabs on how much food they're eating, how many carbs are in all of the foods that they're eating. But it's not very good if you're constantly surrounded by carbs, because during the moments when you want to fast from carbs, it's really hard to resist that. So if you want to give this approach a try, I recommend clearing out all the temptations from your home first, just to make it easier for you. I'd love to hear which method resonates with you the most in the comments below. Now, this is a lot to take in, but no worries. Rich and I looked at nutrition information of literally over hundreds of foods, crunched the numbers, and narrowed it all down to just 13 most common food groups that share very similar calories and carbs. So you can just at a glance tell if what you're eating is high or low carbs. Just click the link in the description below and tell me where to send this guide to. Also, I'm happy to announce that a few spots have opened up now for the free one-to-one consultation for Rich and my Badass Body Boss program. So please click the link in the description below to sign up and see if we are a really good fit for each other. And this is only something for you if you're serious about reaching your health and fitness goals. This is not just to have a chat. If you want to do this, come prepared with a serious goal in mind that you want to achieve. And if you found this video helpful, please hit that like button and be sure to subscribe and share this video with whoever else you feel could use this information. And be sure to check out these 2 videos to learn more about how to make progress for your body type and how to lose fat naturally and sustainably with PCOS. Until next time.